Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Boulder. I know it's been a while. I know I'm the worst at this YouTube thing, but let's pretend like none of that exists and let's do some climbing. Okay, so to be honest, it's been a long time since I've climbed consistently. Life has just gotten in the way and, things have been going crazy. I've got family coming in and friends coming in to visit, and I'm doing that, and then I've got a lot of work stuff going on. Still working on starting up my own business. Keep you updated on that as well. But all that to say, I've only been able to really climb once a week, if that. This will be an interesting video because my skill level has kind of dropped a little bit. My skill level and my endurance. So I'm hoping in this next month that I can get kicked back off consistently. If you guys have any tips for not losing all my strength, all my endurance, and being able to kind of maintain that while I'm navigating life stuff, please let me know in the comments. Also, before we dive in, don't forget to hit subscribe and to hit like. That really helps me out and it lets YouTube know that people are liking my videos, and then they suggest it more to everyone else. So go ahead and do that for me. I'd really appreciate that. Let's jump in to the first problem now. Okay, so this first one is a V2. I know that's lower than what I usually do, but hopefully some of you out there that are, more beginner climbers like me can appreciate that sometimes you just have to go climb the easier stuff and not go for the hardest thing you possibly can. Especially if you hit a season where you can't climb as consistently. Going in and just hitting some problems that aren't necessarily your max potential but are a little bit lower is, in my opinion, a great way to kind of maintain that muscle and that muscle endurance that you have going. I could be wrong, but when I went in there, it seemed to help me out a lot to just jump in, climb some of these easier ones, easier for me anyway, and just have a good time. So let's talk through this one. This was a pretty fun problem. It's always fun to climb right on a corner like this. So you can see the holds are decent. Really not terrible. I would say this was an easier V2, maybe a harder V1, and it was pretty straightforward. You can see it's just foot, hand, all the way up. So pretty simple, pretty standard for a V1, V2, but I mean, I had a lot of fun. I honestly really like some of these problems just because it's almost therapeutic, almost peaceful to climb some of this stuff. Let's dive into the next problem. This is another V2, but in my very unprofessional opinion, I would argue that it is more of a V3. It's got some tricky moves in there, especially for a V2. So for the sake of this video, I'm gonna call it a V3. If you disagree with me, that's totally fine. You probably know more than me anyways. Just let me know in the comments if you think it's a V2 and I'll likely agree with you, but check it out and maybe you'll see what I'm seeing. Do you see how some of that is a little bit trickier, like that heel hook kind of coming down lower on the wall where you don't have great feet beneath you, but you still have to do somewhat of a bigger move to move up to that next hold? I think all of that is kind of V3 or at least very hard V2 level climbing, which is kind of why I would call it a V3 instead. Plus, you know, since I'm usually climbing V3 and sometimes V4s, it makes me feel better to call this a V3. So let's watch through it again and we can talk through some of this stuff. So it starts off with this kind of weird transition from one wall to another. You can see I used my arm length to kind of skip. One important thing to note there is that you can see my feet are cutting. That is because, we'll say it's because I'm out of practice, but really it's because I was not being mindful of my feet. Especially with this being an easier problem, sometimes I just assume it's going to be really easy, so I don't think about it. It's a good reminder that if you're going to go onto smaller, worse footholds, you need to be really mindful of where those toes go, and you need to really hold that body tension, keeping your feet on the wall. All stuff I'm out of practice with. Let's keep watching. You can see you can definitely see I went at this without really looking at the problem first. So you can see I get down here, drop my match right there, get that left hand over, and here's the tricky move that I would say is a V3 move, is you don't have really the feet to be able to get yourself up to that next hold, and you can see it's actually kind of a bigger move. So for me, that heel hook there was kind of the best option, but I mean, if you see this move, and you can see I'm struggling with it a little bit too, that's not necessarily the most difficult move, but I would say it was harder than any V2 problem I've done. I was able to flash this, so obviously it was not too hard, but definitely on the more difficult side. And you can see I struggled a little bit, finally decided to just flag my right foot out, got my feet up, and the rest of it was standard V2. Smaller holds, but straight up and down, you don't have any crazy footwork. That's kind of what I'm used to with a V2. All right, so now let's move on to an actual problem that was actually graded as a V3. This was one that I did not get in this video, and really with how crimpy it was and how infrequently I've been climbing, I could not try it more than twice. But let's give it a watch and see what happens. So you can see this is a tricky problem, for me at least, as a beginner, and it requires some kind of finicky body positioning. I think I was starting to figure it out by the end of this session, but this is the kind of problem that for me, since I am a beginner and body positioning is not always something I get right the first time, will take me 5, 6, 7, 10 attempts. But again, I didn't have the finger strength to do it. Let's watch the second attempt that I did and we can kind of talk through it. So right off the bat, I start off really low, and you can see I've got a pretty big move to that next hold, which is very crimpy, very positioning based. I really lean hard onto that right knee so that I can balance there, get a hand up there. I think I had the right idea right here. I just was tired and didn't have the balance to make this work out. So I tried to switch it up, and by this point, you know, my fingers are getting tired. I thought maybe if I flag to the left, this is also probably a decent option. And there I gave up. So you can see that I got my feet wrong. I just needed to move my feet around, got my right foot on that right start hold, I think, and I could have kept cruising up that problem slowly and surely. Now, I saved the best problem for last because this was another V3, and this was one that I was actually able to send, and I was actually able to flash this one, which I was honestly stoked about because, you know, I've been out of practice and I thought I was just gonna be struggling with everything.
Oh, that's a sloppy one on my part, sorry.
fun problem. You can tell that I had to really fight for it. And it was one of those problems, I know anybody who's climbed for any amount of time knows this feeling where every single time you go for another move, you think, there's no way I'm gonna get this. And then you do the move and you get it and you're like, whoa, okay, that's crazy. This was one of those problems for me. Every single move on this problem, I was like, yeah, there's no way that I'm gonna be able to do this. And then I attempted it and somehow magically it all worked out. So let's watch it. Starts on this really weird crimpy pocket style. Up a big move to this left hand, which is slopey and just horrible. I'm not great at that style of climbing. You can see I carefully and slowly moved that right hand over. Up next, I had to fight to get this left hand on while still holding on to that slope, or left foot, I meant left foot. Finally, I can get this left foot, and then a big move over. I pull myself in, bring that left hand up. You can see how hard this is for me. I bring my left foot up, again struggling a lot with my keeping my feet on. Give up, put my left foot on a different hold. And here's a bit of interesting technique. I had to shuffle around because the hold on this other wall went this way. My whole body was facing this way. So in order to hang on to that, my body needed to be over kind of on the left side to get that to get that finger friction against that hold. So the reason I do, if you don't know, if you're a beginner like me and you don't know this, the reason I'm shuffling my feet around a ton is because I'm trying to position my body well to lean against opposite of the direction this hold is. So you can see I shuffle around, I'm able to get my foot there, and then the great top out, one final switch. Sometimes even though my one hand is on the top, I feel like I have to switch feet. I don't know what that's about. Hopefully you guys can see my progress, and my progress will help some of you learn, or at the very least, entertain you, because if you're like me, you just enjoy watching climbing videos, watching people climb, seeing all the different types of problems. So thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great week. See you then. Peace.